Hi everybody, welcome to Social Work 320, Individuals and Families. This is the first in the series of 3 different practice classes, so individuals and families, then groups and communities. So what we're really focusing on here is kind of setting the stage to equip you with different skills to be able to work with families and people on an individual level. So the purpose of this recording is to kind of introduce myself, the course, general expectations, and then there'll be a part 2 that will go over the syllabus and the assignment. So I'm going to pop out of large screen and go down to the bottom. So like I said, this is Social Work 320, Individuals and Family. All of you are social work majors who are in this class because only social work majors can take this course. All right. So the purpose of today's session online is just to kind of do some introductions, set the course expectations, review the syllabus and assignments, and do a quick review of the general method because that is the framework that we utilize for this course and being able to work with at a micro setting. So introductions, all of you, or most of you actually, have had me as a professor, but just a quick recap. This is my 5th year at Kuiper College. I am a Kuiper College graduate of 2007, so it's been a little bit. Started out when it was Reformed Bible College, but then finished as Kuiper College. I have 6 children, as you can see in the picture, and if you can do math or assess the ages, you can see 2 of them are pretty little. So I have been on maternity leave the past 2 years because I had Ivy in 2020, and then Easton came in 2021, so I haven't actually taught this class since fall 2019. It is one of my favorite classes to teach. So I am excited to be back. As you can see down here, I cut and pasted this slide from my human behavior class. This is supposed to say, why do I love teaching individuals and families? It is insane. I did therapy and individual work for most of my clinical career, and I would sit in sessions and I would have things that I learned in this course pop up into my head. It's like a miracle question, not asking why questions, phrasing things in certain ways. So it's very, very, it's very practical, but it's also just something that kind of sticks and translate really well into your own practice. So I love teaching that because I think that this is something that can really make a big impact on your professional self. And even, like, honestly, I use some of this stuff in my own personal life too, for better or for worse. I don't know. This makes me really excited to be a social worker. And it's also, like I said, very practical. Like I specifically use things I learned in this class like 20 years ago in the field. So that to me is really, really exciting. I have talked about this before if you've had me in class, but if not, I did most of my micro practice at Cherry Health, which is a health clinic in Grand Rapids that serves individuals who have higher needs that might not have access to traditional healthcare due to insurance or other barriers in their lives. And so I worked in a clinic that was community. It was a community mental health funded program, and so the individuals all had to come diagnosed with a severe and persistent mental illness. They were adults, so I used all of my individual and family skills very, very intentionally in my practice. So that's a little bit about me, my family. I love them. All right, so typically this would be the opportunity or the time in the class, if we were in person, where you all would share with each other different things. Some people hate this, think it's a waste of time. Some people love it. I personally like it just because it's a good way to kind of ease into class and getting comfortable talking. Because it's a junior level class, I've taught most of you, but with how things work with our 2+2 program and people coming in at different times, there are some individuals I've never met and you've never met. So instead of doing it, obviously, in person, we're online today. After you finish watching the video, there is a comment section on the Sakai page, and I'm just asking that you answer these questions there as kind of a get to know you. And so for those who also have me for human behavior, I did the exact same questions. So you can modify your best memory from the summer, either do a different one or the most dramatic or worst. Just something to kind of help us get to know you as more of a person than just a name. All right, course expectations. So what is this class all about? Individuals and Family, like I said, is the first course in the sequence of 3 generalist practice courses. So I know you've probably heard us talk about generalist practice over and over and over. It's basically saying all of the skills that you are taught in Kuiper's social work curriculum can be translated to the individual level, the group level, the community level, so micro, meso, macro, and even global. We don't teach you how to work with a specific population. We give you the overall skills to be able to kind of take and make your social work career however you want it. So basically the skills that you learn here, we do practice them on an individual level, but you're able to take those skills, use them at the meso macro with really any population you want to, whether it be kids, adults, I don't even know. There's just so many, like going into gerontology or foster care, anything. The skills that we teach you in this class are intended to be able to translate into any population you work with. This gray box kind of just reiterates everything I've said. It's the study and practice of values and skills from the generalist social worker, specifically with individuals and families. So we're going to talk about the general method in a later video, but it kind of encompasses everything from engagement, collecting the data, making goals, evaluating, assessing, going through all the stages of a general method. But we do want to make sure we're doing this in a very sensitive and culturally appropriate way, because we do work with such a diverse, people are diverse, the world is diverse, and so we're going to encounter a ton of diversity, so we have to make sure that the way we approach it is done in a very sensitive and culturally appropriate way. Issues related to the client and worker relationship. So the code of ethics kind of directs how we navigate relationships with our clients. So making sure that we're doing things in an ethical manner, making sure that we're upholding our values as well as the profession's values, and also kind of looking at what the client needs and making sure that the client is the expert in their situation and are able to drive the type of services that they want. So there's a ton of stuff that we talk about in the next 15 weeks. And so we do kind of come in guns blazing, lots of information, but it's all very practical and tangible stuff you can apply to like your actual social work practice. This was mentioned in a lot of your social work program interviews, is once we get to the practice classes, which this one is, we really are looking at students being participants in the class. It's not me just sitting here and lecturing at you. It's really the time to take the skills that are learned and put them into tangible practice. So usually that's done through role plays. Can be very intimidating going in front of your peers, not exactly sure what you're doing. It feels awkward sometimes. And so we really want to make sure that the classroom is a safe space, that there's no judgment, that there's no talking down if you don't do something perfectly, that there's feedback, because that's how we grow and learn, but done in a constructive and very tactful way. Obviously, this course is a hybrid course, and so we're not physically in person every class period to be able to do different types of role plays. So I have different ways of integrating that into the hybrid sessions, but there'll be a lot of opportunities on our in-seat days to be able to have everybody come up in front and do some role plays to kind of become comfortable using the skills. And sometimes in the discomfort, that's when we learn the most. So I kind of gave a couple bullet points about why we do this. Obviously, it helps with skill development and comfort. Might as well practice it here before you have to get to your internships or in a clinical setting where there's a lot more writing on things. Practicing with your peers is a really good way just to kind of get comfortable with doing these types of assessments and interviewing and data collection. But it also kind of helps with that professional development piece where when you give feedback to your peers, it can be really uncomfortable because it doesn't always feel good to be like, hey, that didn't really go so well, or maybe you should do this differently. But in therapeutic relationships, that's often our role, that we are giving feedback and direction to our clients. And sometimes that's really just not comfortable at all because our clients don't want to hear it. Or I know I always had some difficulty because I was younger. I still would like to think I'm younger. But a lot of my clients were older than me. And so, like, why was this young punk trying to tell an older individual who had far more life experience than them, telling them to do something differently? It felt very intimidating to me. So this is a good opportunity to kind of get used to those, like, that discomfort, because it's going to prepare you in a professional way to be able to do that with your clients down the road. So we do really try to be intentional about everything that we do, that it's not just filler or just pointless activities, but it has a bigger purpose in the end. I added this slide in here because part of our social work program, we're accredited by the Council of Social Work Education, which is the CSWE. This accrediting body is what allows us to be able to have you graduate with a BSW versus just a bachelor's in science in something. And so we have to make sure all of our curriculum and what we're teaching you meets accreditation standards. So the competency that this class is assessing and making sure that we're teaching appropriately is competency number 7, which is assess individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. Obviously, we're just focusing on the individual and family level, but through the use of some of our assignments, we're going to make sure that all of you will be able to assess and to meet these 2 different practice behaviors, which is applied theories of human behavior and person and environment, so very hipsy stuff, as well as other culturally responsive and interprofessional conceptual frameworks when assessing clients and constituencies. Really, really fancy and wordy way to say, how are you looking at your clients, and is it in something that is evidence-based versus just your own personal views? So we're taking the educational framework and directly applying it to situations where we're assessing to make sure our clients are receiving good and appropriate services. And I'll talk more in the next video about what assignments do these what assignments we use to assess the competency. But then you can see also another error right here. That's supposed to be B. We're also going to check to see that you can demonstrate respect for client self-determination during the assessment process by collaborating with the clients and constituencies and developing a mutually agreed upon plan. So self-determination is something that we talked a lot about when you took Intro to Social Work. Something we're going to continue on in this course as well, because it's a huge piece of the code of ethics that clients have the right to determine their care, whether we perceive it to be what we think they should do. They have the right to determine the direction of their care. So we'll talk a lot about that in class, about what happens, what that looks like when it kind of conflicts, but what we think should be happening, and how do you kind of process that conflict. All right, class expectation. I'm going to move my face out of the words. Because it's a hybrid course, you are only allowed 1 unexcused absence during the semester. This is because we only have 15 in-seat classes, and so missing more than that, you kind of really are missing out on content now. If something happens and there needs to be some modification or something unexpected, please always talk to me. I might deviate it from this on a case-by-case basis. But just knowing the expectation is when we have in-seat classes, you have to show up. Just because I'm working in a hybrid format, so it's more flexible with outside schedules than when you do need to be in class, I expect you to be there. I'm also asking to make sure you're on time. Arriving late can be really disruptive to the social environment of class, especially if we are starting out the course or class with role plays or even prayer. Coming in kind of can set off things. It also is kind of that professional development piece that when you get to enter the workplace, or if you have a client, they're expecting you to be somewhere at a certain time. We're looking at that as well. Electronics, laptops are okay for note-taking, but during role plays or during any sort of presentation from your peers, I do ask that those get closed just out of respect for the person who is up front, that they deserve your undivided attention. I know that phones are going to be present, but please just reserve them to just emergency phone calls. I think that